Last year, as I knew you would. I want to ask our panelists, first of all, for their initial response to what they saw and marry it with the job you do at, let's start off with you, Teresa Harrison, at Ernst & Young.
Yeah, so hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So beautiful faces out here, so glad to be here. I think it talks about really the business case of why I do my job every day. So I lead our global supplier diversity initiative that's in about 40 plus countries across the globe, ensuring that we provide opportunity for diverse-owned businesses to be a part of our supply chain. And I think it talks about the disparity that exists and how these programs are really talking about how making the opportunity, but I think more about the access of how we get these products and services into our supply chains. And that's all diverse from a particular business. So we look at Black-owned businesses, Asian, Hispanic, what have you, and then ethnic minority as it relates to from a global perspective, as well as people with disability, women-owned businesses, and our veteran-owned network. So I think really what it talks about is us taking this information and educating the people who make these decisions, because I think one of it is about people do business with who they know. So unless we can get them into the room and talk about building these relationships, and when we talk about, we need these assets that we have out there, but we need to build these assets of access for our entrepreneurial community to start having the opportunity for them to build their own successful businesses in order to share their products and services with us from a global perspective. So I think, A, it's about awareness and education. And then I think it's about accountability and action. So what do we do with this information? It's great for us to be awareness and learn about it, but how do we put those particular practices in our particular supply chain organization and set up goals, accountability to drive these particular purchases from the diverse community?
Okay, and before I move on from you, thank you very much, Teresa. Walking the walk, beacons for change, cultural laggards, or stuck in the race paradox. Where would you say you are?
We're walking the walk. I'm here today.
All right, all right.
I think one of the things that I found when I started this role 20 years ago, I started at Ernst & Young, it'll be in June, and it was about starting on the foundation of the DEI that they have. We are a people-first culture. We have always been that, but it is about really, I have the leadership, senior leadership, mid-leadership, down to the people who were doing the work, that believe in DE&I and believe in making those opportunities. So I think one of the things you'll hear from my global ceremony, you'll hear from my American CEO, you'll hear from our chief supply chain officer about why this is important, why they show up, and why they do this work every day.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Let me go to Richard Birch, Chief Executive of London Chamber of Commerce. So yes, same question to you, your response to what you saw from Carlton there, and marry it with what you do.
Great. So my first response is it's a data-driven piece of report, and that's key. I'm a scientist by background. I love data. I believe it is the bedrock of everything we do, and without data, we can't move forward. So well done, I think. I'm really encouraged by that, and please can I have the slides out very quickly?
Yes.
We're the London Chamber of Commerce, so we do what it says on the tin. We're a chamber. It's a bloody big room where businesses meet and do business. And when George Floyd was murdered a couple of years ago, I remember issuing a press release about it, and then I suddenly sat back and thought, who cares? A white, middle-aged Brit male issues press release saying he's disgusted at murder of young black man in America. So what? So that's when I got hold of Michael, Lord Hastings, to the rest of you, who's an old friend, 25 years. And said, what do I do? And that's why, with Michael's leadership, we formed the Black Business Association in the London Chamber. And the purpose of that is simply to do what a chamber does, which is to bring people together to do business together. But what we have to do is normalise the presence of black business leadership in the corridors of power. And I think that's our primary objective, is to make the presence of black business leaders commonplace and unremarkable in the places where it is remarked. And you know this, and those of you who are black in the room know, you walk into a room, people look at you because you're unusual. They also look at you because I'm afraid there's still a lot of racism out there, and we've seen that in some of the data, and we might try to be nice about it, but in the end, it is racist behaviour. It's a belief that people with a different ethnicity are not as good as people who are white. Yep. And that is still there. and we still mustn't let our guard down. But the way we attack that is when we see it, is to call it out for what it is, but also to behave in a way to demonstrate it's not true. It's not true. And we have to behave in that way constantly, relentlessly in going forward. And that's what we're trying to do in the London Chamber, is to remind people that this is a city now which is 45% ethnic minority. One of the great joys in my working life, which is there isn't much left of it at the moment. You know, I'm reaching not the end, but still a bit more to go. In my working life, there will be no ethnic majority in London. And I think that'll be a day of celebration and joy. It'll make us the first genuinely global city on God's earth. And I think that will just be a moment of radical and dramatic change. But what we have to do is be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And we're not prepared for it yet, but I think we're getting that way.
So in that case, would you say you're, thank you. Are you guys stuck in the race paradox then, but you're trying to become a beacon of change? Are you walking the walk? Are you cultural laggards? Where are you?
I think
Honestly,
we are approaching walking the walk.
Right.
We're not there yet. Michael, what do you think?
I think we're running in some stages already, because the walk has been getting people to believe in the possibilities, joining so they become effective members, and then networking so they learn how to value each other's businesses, and then growing in those networks. And I think we're now in the growing phase.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Jan Marchent, Managing Director of Home and Clothing at Tesco. So, your response to Carlton's presentation, how much did it resonate with you? What are you doing?
Great, thank you. So, I definitely agree. You know, the data is the absolute truth, and as an organisation, we are very data-driven, and insight really, you know, informs the decisions that we make. So, as Tesco, you know, we're here today. We've got a team of great colleagues with us. We want to engage with businesses. We want to do business, and we're here to make sure that we give you that access and perhaps some encouragement and advice to make sure you can come forward and supply Tesco. It's as simple as that. Our core purpose at Tesco is to serve customers, communities and the planet a little better every day. And as an organisation, we are committed to a diverse culture, but also we need to serve those communities. And in certain instances, our product ranges don't reflect the needs of the community. So first of all, it's good business for us to get the right product offer out there to customers. And by engaging with the suppliers that can provide that product, we will achieve our financial end goals. So it absolutely makes good business sense. In terms of, you know, the organisation, our commitments, the progress we're making, we've got a Black Action Plan which specifically has targets to achieve equity within the mix of our colleagues, for brand equity, so that the products that we offer and the organisation we are reflects the community. We have targets to have equity in our supply base and to build the number of black suppliers that we deal with. And finally, community equity, so ensure that the funds that we provide to communities is fair and support the black communities. So we've got a very fixed plan we are committed to. Where we are on the journey, so thank you for calling us out as beacons of change. I think that's overdoing it. I think we're walking the walk. We need to do better, you know, and that's why we're here today with the team to try and give access and meet black businesses. So I think that's a good thing.
All right, thank you very much indeed. And Mayank Shah, founder and CEO of Minority Supplier Development UK, MSD UK.
Thank you so much, Carlton, for inviting me. I think I would like to start with my own story. I came to this country from India in 2000. And I still remember I came to Leeds, did my MBA, and I had to ask for a loan from my friends to get my family over here because I had no money. And I was suspended from my MBA because I couldn't pay the fees. And when the day my wife and 2 kids were landing over here in Leeds, I had £5.65 in my account. 23 years on. So to cut the story short, I did my PhD on supplier diversity and set up MSD UK. But I remember the quote that Teresa has in the signature. I always think that I created opportunities from challenges throughout these 23 years. And I have worked hard to make sure that now MSD UK has over 150 corporate companies who are joining this walk the walk journey on supplier diversity. And now we are in Europe also. So I think that's something that we all need to think about, that, okay, we are different, but I think if we convert all challenges into opportunities, I think we have so much to achieve. But when it comes to supplier diversity, where we are after 17 years, I think it needs a reset, because so far we have given ethnic minority businesses access to opportunity, what Carlton mentioned. I think what we need to change now is convert those opportunities into contract.
Yeah.
Right? And for that, I want every single corporate members, corporate companies who are here, let's commit to doubling your spend and doubling your number of suppliers, ethnic minority and black entrepreneurs, year on year for next 5 years. If you do that, you will see the change.
Fantastic. How does that sound, Jan? How does that sound? Bring it on. Okay, Teresa, how does that sound?
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Fantastic. Carlton, your response to what you've heard thus far?
Well, let's be clear. It is challenging. There are structures and systems in place today that prohibit or make it difficult for black entrepreneurs to get access to those opportunities. I think there's an appetite for change, but my key thing is the appetite, the intention must become a reality.
Yeah.
The actions are what you take. So when you look back, and the decisions that you make today will manifest in 5 years' time. And that's the real change. So you can say in 5 years' time, what do we do? That decision we make here in that boardroom today is going to have a real social impact. So this afternoon is a good example. We've got people pitching, as I mentioned earlier on. Now, they may get through, they may not get through, it doesn't matter. But actually, if they do get through, what difference does that fundamentally make to their business? They create jobs, they create opportunities, they create revenue, they contribute to GDP. It's all great stuff, but it's about making sure that the decisions you're thinking about in that boardroom has real value. Not into the business, because it's got to be commercially viable, and I get that. But at the same time, think about it in real terms, that there are good businesses out there, but all they want is the access to the opportunity. But you've got to make the intention a reality.
Okay. How does that happen, Lord Hastings?
You know, the one aspect I wanted to focus on in Carlton's brilliant, exceptional, absolutely amazing, content-heavy speech that we all want the slides of.
And in fact, let's take advantage of that pause. People have been asking, or on the pad here, will the slides be made available after the conference? Clearly not.
Yes.
Just say yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
good.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. But the bit I wanted to focus on, in alignment with all the other comments, is when you said, Carlton, the perceptions of distrust, which are so significant. And those perceptions are that black entrepreneurs, black business starters are all individuals. I mean, we talked about this yesterday over lunch. Teresa and I and Carlton had an opportunity to chin wag for a while. Is all individuals who essentially are fighting one another for places of prominence.
Yes.
And what is necessary is a convolucence of common purpose that brings a togetherness that focuses on the prospects ahead, because we're willing to align. Now, one of the many great joys of my life is being able to look at what we've been able to create in Cornerstone VC. We're now the largest venture capital fund in Europe, and I'm a non-exec director of Cornerstone VC, and many of you will know the three guys who effectively brought that hard work together. But before that, and I was patron of Cornerstone Syndicate, we had to bring together 20 black investors who were willing to put forward their £50,000 each and hand it across to a core team to believe that that common investment would become a virtue creation for the future. Now, those 16 guys, 4 wonderful women, agreed together to trust each other. That trust paradigm created Cornerstone VC. Mm-hmm. And you're about to hear news of the doubling of the size of Cornerstone VC in a few weeks' time. We've been able to make something meaningful and strong built on the virtue, the perception virtue of trust.
Yep.
That is fundamental to meaningful success. And therefore, all of us who want to be effective in business from a black or minority perspective have to say to each other, who should I be aligning with? How should I be seeking common value? What common purpose do we build? And therefore, what better outcome can be shared as compared to how can I look great?
Tremendous.
That is the challenge.
Thank you very much indeed. And people are flooding me with questions. Thank you very much. And Lord Hastings, this is really on point. Somebody's asked, how do we get black businesses to engage more in group economics and build equity in our supply chains together? And then somebody else says here, we sadly do not support our own. Well, some people are doing that. There's a question here. There's been talk about assets other than property. What other assets should I be looking for? I'm not sure if we're going to respond to that one today, unless somebody wants to.
You could say wine, you could say painting, but I would say property, just stick it
Property. Okay, here we go. Carlton, you were talking Swahili earlier. Well, you were trying to. Someone says, as someone who has Kiswahili. Okay, as someone who has relocated to Kenya, how does the panel see that diaspora businesses interact systematically with the business on the African continent? Who would like to take that one?
Well, I'd love to take that one to begin with, because yesterday morning I returned from Kenya. I'm heavily involved in Safaricom and the businesses at Safaricom Sports, but I've also just become a non-exec director of a Kenyan business operating in 9 countries on the continent and owning a German engineering company. And that's a significant first. This is a company with a 50 million turnover and 180 million in physical assets. And therefore, when you look at how was it achieved, that just 6 years ago it didn't exist, and it's called Adrian Group, how has it succeeded in becoming engineering and technology from Kenya to everywhere else on the continent and acquiring a German company? And it's all those things that we've talked about of the asset of common purpose, the values that determine how the business works, the absolute integrity of the chief executive and the board, clear integrity, no non-corruption, nobody taking sidelines, and beyond that, a vision, an idealism vision that it is possible to make African business work in Europe. And therefore, the first European asset acquired last year, and I can tell you, we're coming after British assets.
Okay, yeah. Carlton?
I'll just take it very quickly. So there's an old Jamaican saying, one hand can't clap, which means you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
So it's a collective responsibility. So how do we make change? There are organisations here. There's the Black Business Association, London Chamber of Commerce. There's MSD UK. There's Black Business Recommendations. There's lots of organisations which I alluded to earlier. Be connected. That's the critical path.
Yeah,
and to think macro and not necessarily micro. So you can do business on a global scale. There's a speaker today, Byron Dixon. He trades across 30 countries in globally, China, India. So we can't just think in a singular lens. We have to think more globally and more macro.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I'd just like to add, on the Africa side, which I think is very important, I lived and worked in Lagos for 5 years, which I greatly enjoyed, and therefore I know the answer to the jollof rice question.
No, you don't. Yeah, Richard, you don't. Richard.
You have to give an answer to that, Richard.
No. Richard. No. He clearly didn't go to Accra. Go to Accra. Nima, Mamobi. Go on.
I have been to Accra and I have gathered my data. And I continue to do so. Just quickly about Africa. I think when we talk about diaspora, we have to recognise that is a very, very rich ecosystem.
Sure.
It can range from people who have actually recently come from a country and they feel very much part of it, to people who it is part of their heritage, but they actually don't have that much intimacy with it. And it's every part of that spectrum in between. I think it's one of the most undervalued and underutilised resources that London, above any other city in the world, has. And we've really got to make much more of it. In terms of Africa, which I have worked in a lot, and enjoy working in. With the London Chamber, we've just signed an agreement with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat, and we will be opening by the end of this year an Africa Trade Hub in the City of London. And the idea is it becomes a home from home for Africa businesses and trade ministers eventually, of course, but African businesses, when they come to London, to feel that they have somewhere which is their place. So they're not just meeting people in other people's offices or in coffee bars, it's their space. And we hope to have that open by the end of the year. And that, of course, will benefit also the flow of businesses, business activity from London itself into Africa as well.
Okay.
Tremendous.
Fantastic. So
Thank you very much indeed. We've only got 10 minutes left on this part. And I tell you, there are far more than 10 questions. I'm going to beg you to keep your responses very tight indeed. This one, as a small business owner, I find it hard to find the corporate opportunities. I actively use LinkedIn to try and reach out to multiple companies, but often meet with no response. Are there any suggestions to connect with the right people? Briefly, would somebody like to take that?
Join MST UK. We work with 140 corporations. Every week, there's an opportunity email that goes out with plenty of opportunities that our members are offering. You need to be part of this community because this is where you will get access to all the opportunities that are coming from all these global companies.
Thank you, Mayank.
and join the London Chamber of Commerce and Industries Black Business Association, which MSN UK has done. Join, because when you join, we've gone from 0 businesses in 2020 to nearly 2,000 now. When you join, you get a network, but also a wider network of availability, insight, and resources and investments. So please, join in, network.
And I would just say, I probably get 200 LinkedIn messages every other day. So one of the things is, what is your message saying? How are you standing out from the other 200 I get? But if I come here, you have me, there's probably 200, 300 people here, as one of 300, but you can come up and actually see me or go to MSD UK event or one of the Chamber's events. So it's about activity and getting involved in the organizations that are providing you the access so that you can meet the person rather than just being a LinkedIn message on the LinkedIn message.
All right, thank you very much.
Why I try to get to them as much as I can?
Yes.
Well, I'm one person.
Okay, here's an interesting one. I live in an area of less than 1% ethnic minority. I can only employ white people as it's only white people that we deal with. How do we ensure that ethnic minority organizations do not leave ethnic minority organizations that are behind, that are geographically, ethnically challenged? Put your hand up. Who wrote that? Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I see you. Okay. So who would like to take that if you dare? Sorry, no takers. Maybe during the break. Okay. How does Tesco monitor the success of access for black businesses to their supply chain? Is this something you monitor?
Yes, it is something we monitor, and we are very aware of the number of suppliers that we have in our portfolio. As I said before, we need to achieve our equity goals, we need to increase that number. So it's all, for us, our big focus is making that access easier for potential suppliers. So the team are here and we'll be able to help you navigate the Tesco website to be able to make that connection. But I would also build on the other comments around LinkedIn. So I think, as well as having access to the individuals, it's also having access to advice on how to pitch. And, very often, perhaps the first approach isn't as tailored as it might be to be able to really cut through. And I think that's what we are here today to kind of help with, and also to, build connections and a network that will enable you to really make a very targeted pitch to whoever you need to be able to really get through. So, we're measuring it. As I said, we need to increase and do more, and that's why we're here.
Thank you, Jan. Richard, this is for you. To the London Chamber, given there is huge distrust how do you come across as relatable and trustworthy? Well, he went to Lagos, didn't he? Who is actually... No, I'm joking. no, I mean... no, I was see the double entendre. I didn't mean like that, actually. I'm trying to show that he was on the ground, living in Lagos, so he was. Okay, who is actually on the ground doing the work?
Well, in terms of my staff, yes. And the majority of my staff are white, and I know that's a problem in terms of approachability. So we have to address that, and that's why I say we are not quite on walk the walk yet. We have a lot to do. I think in the end, it's about being open and transparent about your opinions and your views. And I try to create an atmosphere where black-led businesses feel confident about coming to talk with us and to be in the rooms that the London Chamber of Commerce create. And the reason I think that works is because I've got people like Michael Hastings who lead on all that, rather than it simply being me. My job is to act as the chief exec, which is to be the engine and to make sure all the sums add up in the end. But actually, it's to liberate people like Michael and Menelek, who's the program officer for this, and also our black business leader members to actually go out and lead for themselves. And Michael and Carlton as well have assembled a formidable team of people who are us. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Therese, this might be one for you. What are the systems or processes that corporates have set in place to be able to analyze their spend? How do you get this data, and how do you report this spend?
So we have a very robust spend reporting system. So I'm able to break down my spend by black, all the other different ethnic minorities, by geographical locations. As I talked about, we operate in about 40 countries. To break that down to see what that looks like, where we're spending. We have specific targets and goals as it relates to some specific ethnic minority, indigenous. If we look at Australia, around Canada, in the US, we have MLT certification around black owned spend and Hispanic owned spend, as well as that relates back into our overall retention and recruitment into our workforce. And so we've got specific goals that we look at quarterly from leadership, senior leadership perspective, and then overall annual goals that we report out in our CEO reviews on an annual basis.
Thank you very much for that, Teresa. Question here that's just come in. So much spend comes from central and local government. In terms of supply chains, what steps can be taken to increase public sector spend with black-led businesses? Carlton, perhaps?
I think I alluded to this as one of the recommendations in the report. And it's about looking at how do people access that supply chain. And I talk about deconstructing that supply chain in a way that it's more accessible. Because at the moment, as I said, if I've got to fill out a form, a pre-qualification questionnaire or request for RFI, whatever it might be, it is protracted, it's long. And it's sometimes complex and difficult. Now, if I'm a single entrepreneur, we know the vast 99% of entrepreneurs are macro, small businesses. And if I'm going to have to take a week to fill out that form, it's not going to happen. But equally so, if I do fill it out, the opportunities for me to get access to it is going to be difficult because I don't always meet the criteria. So I think organisations, whether that's the public, private, third sector, need to think about how they construct their supply chain. Now, a good example, Westminster Council have now commissioned a separate part of their team specifically to lead on diversity since the report. Specifically, and that's what they do as a full-time job. And what they've said, because a lot of suppliers will look at risk mitigation. Well, if I give it to them, it's too much risk. Therefore, they said, look, actually, we're going to look at our spend levels. If something's under 50K or something like that as a spend, we are more relaxed, if you like. They've still got to tick the right boxes in terms of the quality of the product's got to be right, the service has got to be deliverable. But they've said, actually, if it's 50K or it's 40K, we are happy to be more liberal with our access opportunities. And I think they need to think differently in terms of their innovation. You can't continue to think the same way, because what did Einstein say? You think, if you do the right... What is
Definition of madness, doing the same thing over and over,
the same thing,
expecting a different
result. And that's the thing. You've got to think differently.
Can I add on that?
Yes, man.
I think especially in London, what I'm seeing is that more and more public sector organizations are now looking at supplier diversity. So over the last 2 years, City of London Corporation, Met Police and Westminster Council has joined and be part of MST UK. But also recently, we have, in partnership with Heart of the City, won a major contract funding from UK SPF to support London-based ethnic minority businesses and make them supply chain ready.
Yeah, somebody here has mentioned that Lewisham is a sponsor and supporter of the event, and they want more local authorities, local government and national government to support initiatives like this today. We haven't got much time left. Somebody's asking, can we please see the slide on the 21 recommendations? Again, it moved too fast. Can you do that? Can you do that? What else do we have here? Okay.
Henry, on that note, the report, actually, there's a QR code for the report to download in the conference handbook. And it's got the
Fantastic.
recommendations in there.
And some people are wondering about health, because of course it was front and centre during the pandemic, and health, the spend from the National Health Service is incredible. I mean, what is the budget for the National Health Service? How much do we spend in taxpayers' money? 170 billion, huge amount of procurement going on. Why doesn't health have a higher profile here today? Because health is a business too. That's something maybe for the future.
It's certainly a consideration for the future, but certainly we look, it's a broad brush. So we look at public, private and third sector.
Yep, okay. For Michael, for Lord Hastings, what is a typical check size, as in that kind of check, for Cornerstone VC? What other criteria can you share?
The average check size of the 6 investments we've made in the course of the last 8 months is around £350,000. Some up to about £450,000. We don't do anything below around 100,000. So it needs to be an organisation that has got real scalability and prospects to it, and fundamental to it also, and this is, I think, a broader and very valuable point, we're not just investing in black-owned and black-led,
Sure.
but integrated businesses where there are people of different colours and cultures and backgrounds and interests working together, where there's also evidently a black presence.
Yeah.
So this is being really genuinely inclusive, because it's important to make sure that actually, if we're honest about it, you know, there's something, again, we talked about yesterday over lunch. I mean, black people represent 4% of the UK population. People of Asian background represent another 4%, which means 92% don't look like any of us on this panel, apart from the very nice lady at the end. And that means that we have to know how to be inclusive in our buying, relating, investing, and business development. Not just saying, if we don't do it, it don't happen, but if we do it together, it can happen.
Yep. Very quickly, someone says here, membership organisations are great, but it's not often clear who is a member and why. Can London's Chamber of Commerce or Federation of Small Business, we don't have that here, represented here. FSP's not here. No. But so the Chamber of Commerce identify type, ethnicity of the business, etc. So what's the typical profile? I suppose it's going to be very wide, isn't it?
It is very wide, and basically we have 2 types of membership: a paying membership, which is about 2,000, and we currently have about 7,000 people who belong to our free community, which has an app. And I advise anyone who's interested, just go on, get that app, put it on your phone, start communicating. It's a networking tool, and then if you like us, you'll pay to join us. If you don't, you just carry on using the app for free.
Yep.
So please do that. We do gather increasingly information on ethnicity, but as Michael says, the fact is it's be quite difficult when you start to find really truly integrated businesses, which are very exciting.
Tremendous. I want to make this the last one. Okay. How do businesses contact corporate businesses directly? So SMEs, corporate businesses. What is the pathway, the pipeline? Who wants to answer that in a nutshell? Because I mean, there are lots of different ways of approaching a very large organisation, but how do we kind of make it tight and easy and neat?
Join the Black Business Association of London Chamber of Commerce.
That's what I was going to say. Join the organizations. They have access to us where you can get the information to the people who are actually looking.
But somebody's saying here, they all charge. You can't join every single one. Can't they just be one for everybody?
Well, no, but I think you have to look to identify which organization is going to fit into your organization to excel what it is you're trying to sell. So I agree, because there's just the same side on the corporations. I can't be a member of all these advocacy organizations. I have to determine which one is going to be the one that's going to accelerate my mission, my vision of what we're trying to do, and be a part of it. So it's the same thing that you have to do, because you can't join all of them and be an active participant. You have to join the one where you're going to put your energy into and you're going to get what you need out of it based on what they have to offer you as benefits.
But also, I think joining these networks, you're not joining just to get corporate access.
Exactly.
You're getting access to such a wide variety of entrepreneurs. And you have so much to learn from each other and grow together. So I think that's another advantage that advocacy networks like Chamber of Commerce MST UK provides to you.
Yeah.
And it's not only about getting contracts from corporations. You can do business with each other.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times our ethnic minority businesses forget about doing business with each other. It's just not about the corporate members that are there as well.
Absolutely.
And just a final comment on that, if I may.
Yeah.
So Charlie Munger, who is the co-worker with Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger's 99, and he and Warren Buffett have created a $1 trillion business between them, the biggest investment corporation in the world, and they're investing just about everything. He set out his 10 learning points after working with Buffett for 60 years. And his number one learning point is make sure you keep learning. Align yourself with people so you discover insights and awarenesses which you can park for the later time. And one of the issues that for too many of us in the startup business world is we want to make it happen in 9 months. And we get frustrated and then opt out when it doesn't work. He says, no, you have to keep on the long cycle of learning, insight, preparation, and planning. One day your tree will emerge out of the small seed.
Fantastic. I did say that was the last one, but somebody said here, in the presentation there was a mention of a dearth of coaching and mentoring support. As I look around the room, we are here. How would you like us to get involved with the bigger hitters who are listed as sponsors and supporters? So these are the mentors, business coaches, etc. Where are you? Put your hand up if you are a mentor or business coach. 1 there, 2, 3, there's about half a dozen, about 10. Carlton.
Yes.
How?
Hi.
They want to get involved. They're
to people.
coaches, they're mentors.
Talk to people. It's really as simple as that. It's not a, if you had an objective for today, the one thing you would want to take away, find 5 different people you could talk to today and collaborate. And leave today with 5 new connections that you didn't have previously. That's how you start it.
Because these are coaches and mentors in the room, so they're here. They're a resource to be used.
But there are business owners who are successful. They are also mentors.
Very good. All right, that was brilliant. I love that. Put your hands together. Dr. Carlton Brown, Lord Hastings, Teresa Harrison, Jan Marchent, Richard Burge, and Marchent Shah. Thank you very much indeed. Wonderful. Thank you very much.